Nobody's ever gonna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.
Welcome back to the Gen X Juggler podcast. I'm so glad you're here. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. As always, this podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice in any field, although I'm not sure anyone would make that mistake, including legal, medical, financial, or mental health. And if you are entertained by this podcast, please share it with a friend or two. We can all use a little entertainment once in a while, especially we Gen X jugglers. You know, as is the case with many of us latchkey kids from Generation X, my mom always worked, and she was good at her job. She took a little time off when I was small, and she made the most of that time, but working was definitely for her. It charged her battery. She taught me work ethic and professionalism from a very young age. In high school, she insisted that I dress professionally just to go out around town and pick up job applications. I continued this practice after leaving home and even had one boss at a dress shop I worked at in college tell me that was why she hired me. Mom knew her stuff. She started working in the 50s when many women were expected to do the opposite. From the time I was young, I heard dinner table conversations about equal work for equal pay and certain men attempting to put her in her place with underhanded remarks. Trust me when I tell you that a wise man would only do that once. My mom knew how to unapologetically shut it down in a way that was professional, yet clear, and usually led the poor unsuspecting gentleman to regret his decision. I think being a professional woman in a male-dominated world was exciting for her. I'm proud of what she accomplished. She started out as a bookkeeper, went to college in her 40s and earned her BA in accounting, started her own successful business, and eventually served as the president of the Texas Association of Finance and Tax Specialists. She broke so many glass ceilings that there are probably a few shards left in her hair. Because of women like my mother, the doors to college and career were wide open for our generation and those that followed. And let me say that I am so grateful that there are women in medical, legal, financial, and other fields because I tend to connect better with women in certain aspects of life and business. It's nice to have them there doing the job and doing it every bit as well as anybody else. If the call on your life is one that requires college and career, by all means, you go, girl. I'm so happy to have you there. But today, I want to take a look at the other side of the coin. I've been thinking a lot about what it was like when I was a young parent. I had my first baby when I was 21, almost 22. I had always wanted to be a mom. At that time, I had a part-time job as a children's minister, although I don't know if there's really such a thing as part-time when you're working at a church. It was a busy time, but I was fortunate that I could take the baby with me when I went to work. I was so happy when I had my son. Out of all the things I wanted to do when I grew up, raising a family was at the top of my list. But I was also very conflicted at the same time. I hadn't finished my degree yet. I had taken time off after I got married, but always planned on it being a short break. By this time, it had been 2 years. I had decided to go back and was accepted at TCU just before my baby was born, but by the time he arrived, I realized I didn't want to take on anything else that would require time away from him. He was my world, and college was going to have to wait. I was clear on what I wanted to do, but I wasn't confident that it was what I should do. When I was growing up, there was always such an emphasis on women having careers. My mom had a career, and movies and media were filled with women in power suits racing off to meetings, driving while holding a giant brick of a cell phone against their heads saying, "Buy IBM, sell AT&T." As I say this, I can hear Carly Simon singing "Let the River Run" from the movie Working Girl. My parents got me one of those bag phones for Christmas in 1993 in case of emergencies because I had just started driving. And while it was cool to have a phone in my car, the minutes were way too expensive to actually use. So I would pick it up at every stoplight, put it to my ear, and pretend that I was making my own high-powered deals. You might say I picked up the car phone to perpetrate like I was talking. That's where the similarities between myself and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince end, I'm sorry to say. The girls of our generation grew up in a world that was fresh off the sensible heels of Gloria Steinem and second wave feminism. We watched Free to Be You and Me and understood the assignment. Girls could do anything boys could do, so why wouldn't we? When we were asked what we wanted to be when we grew up, we were expected to answer with career goals. However, my friend Lori, whom you may remember from episode 8, said that when people asked us what we planned to do when we went away to college, the correct answer was be homesick. So true. Instead, we would confidently say we planned to teach or be nurses or accountants, journalists, doctors, lawyers, work on Wall Street, you name it. We had goals. I don't remember any of us being bold enough to say, I want to be a mom. We knew we would do that too, but it couldn't possibly be the only goal. So most of us would go to college right out of high school and start down our chosen career paths. Shortly thereafter, we would meet our first husbands. Sorry, maybe that's just me. Or actually meet Mr. Right and wind up getting married and quitting school or finishing our degrees only to be paying student loans well after we stopped working in order to start and raise our families. Some worked full-time jobs, had families, and made it work, but still struggled with that decision at daycare drop-off every morning. Either way, there was something to feel guilty about. Your story may be different, but this was definitely the experience among my circle of friends. Many of us felt as though we had to squeeze into that mold of college and career because of expectation, when the true calling in our hearts was to be home. That seems to have changed so much in recent years, for the better. I find it refreshing that right now, all over social media, we see young moms of this generation less concerned with breaking glass ceilings and more concerned with breaking ground for their gardens. It's a sort of peaceful changing of the guard. I'm fascinated by it, and although I'm not a young mom anymore, I am in. My daughter-in-law, Brooke, is the perfect example of this. She was 21 when she had my granddaughter, just as I was when I had my first son, but she is so much more knowledgeable and grounded than I was at the same stage of life. I honestly feel like I'm learning from her and playing catch-up. She knows about the value of whole foods, home-cooked meals, and avoiding food dyes and other dangerous chemicals that we Gen Xers knew nothing about back in the day. I fed my little guys Happy Meals and Fruit Loops just as soon as they had teeth. I never gave a second thought to gardening or home remedies when I was raising little kids. Brooke has called me once or twice to ask what I did when my kids were young because my granddaughter acquired some of the same things my son used to suffer from, like severe allergies in the spring and fall. I typically tell her that her way is better and that our medical remedies were often medical overkill that led to long, unnatural naps for our toddlers. Not that I minded a break from my little wild man while he slept it off. She lives with him now. She totally understands. But I assure her that her way is definitely better. Brooke has all of those natural, holistic remedies on lock. And of course, she makes her own bread. I see Brooke and these young moms on social media, and I think I want a do-over. If I could go back to being a young parent, knowing what I've learned in the past decade or so, I would do such a better job, no doubt. There's so much that we didn't learn growing up in the 80s and 90s. Back then, living off the land, gardening, canning, and making homemade pickles and jelly was something our grandmothers did. We were in pursuit of money and careers and trying to figure out how to have it all. I took home ec in high school like everyone else, but I didn't take it seriously. It was supposed to be what we used to call a blow-off class, a welcomed break from all the hard work. I'm ashamed to say that the only F I ever got in my high school career was in home ec. Our class was divided into pairs, each charged with making a pan of muffins. Our teacher warned us several times not to overstir the muffins. This was key. In our brilliance, we completely ignored her advice. My partner and I both wanted to stir because that was the fun part. So we raced to get our wooden spoons into that batter, and they quickly became lightsabers as a full-on duel ensued. Needless to say, our batter was fully battered. But they were muffins. What could go wrong, right? When our muffins came out of the oven, they were so dense that the tops separated from the muffins as we attempted in vain to take them out of the muffin tin. we were left with a pile of totally destroyed muffin bottoms and cookie-like muffin tops. We piled the muffin crumbs in a mound on our plate and placed the tops in a circular pattern atop the muffin mound, hoping to at least get points for creativity. Our teacher was unimpressed, to say the least. My partner and I were the first and second ranked students in our class. Bookwork came easy, but bran muffins took us down. Oh, I wish I had stood at the stove with my mom and grandmother and learned to bake, can vegetables, and make jelly. Or spent more time in the garden with my parents. My mom would come home after work and garden to relax. I never understood it. My parents worked full-time, but always kept a garden. I was raised in the country, but I thought my destiny lay elsewhere. I couldn't wait to leave. I didn't get it then, but I get it now. There's a focus and stress relief in planting and growing, feeding chickens and watching those little dinosaurs peck and scrape the ground. There's a satisfaction in gathering eggs and vegetables, preparing them and placing them before your family, rather than running through the drive-thru or picking up a box or a can to reheat. Luckily, my parents live right next door, so I can seek their advice as I dive off into homesteading. It's certainly not easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is, whether it's happening in a boardroom or a greenhouse, but it's so fulfilling. So, I'm learning from my parents, my daughter-in-law, and TikTok. It seems as though little homesteads with chickens and miniature cows are now the metaphorical New Jerusalem that Carly Simon referenced in that song. That working with our hands and focusing on home and family is just as in vogue for young women today as college and career pursuits, or maybe even a healthy combination of both. It's cool because now there seems to be more room for all of us, and we are actually free to be you and me. That does it for this episode of the Gen X Juggler podcast. I hope you find a moment this week to enjoy doing what you love, maybe even connect with the land, de-stress a little, and as the kids say, touch some grass. The kind that grows outside, not the kind your uncle used to grow in his basement. I look forward to our next time together. Until then, friend, let's keep on juggling.
Take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you 'cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.